Beyond the Map's Edge. And today the focus is we're going to cover the story called Posey Land, starting on page 17. So Posey Land is the main focus of this. We're also going to talk about some destinations, some places on the map that we've covered so far in the past few stories. And last but definitely not least, we're going to talk about the live show that Calazar and K-Pro had. Hey, Strawhead Hunter, what's going on? First again. That's like twice in a row you're first, so you're right on it, Johnny on the spot. We're also going to talk about the live show that Justin came on last night, and so some things that I gathered from that. And then a special announcement at the very end. So normally I don't, say I don't dangle a carrot and tease something, but this one I think is pretty cool. So if I can, I'm terrible at keeping secrets, so we'll see. We'll see if I can manage to hold it. All right, so first we're going to go through the chapter. Hey, Sebastian, what's going on? So page 17, if you're watching this video and don't know how you got here or what we're talking about, it's a treasure hunt. So if you're not into treasure hunts, if you don't like gold, probably not going to be interested in the next, 15, 20 minutes. All right. So this one starts on page 17. This one, I think we start to explore some of the deeper themes in the book. And it's toward the last part of the story. So the story sets up, and again, you can tell, an editor's touch right here, because a lot of the stories flow pretty well, and a lot of the book flows pretty well. So I think that's a sign of either an amazing author or a really good editor, right? So it talks about the previous story. They talked about the Posey's on the road, right? So he's visiting his father's side of the family, all right? And so it talks about Cloudcroft, Alamo Gordo, which is really exciting because there were some people in the Discord last night who live near Alamo Gordo or are familiar with the area. So it's always nice when you have a local opinion of who can kind of vouch for the scenes that are being painted in the book, right? So it talks about, his dad's kind of a character as they drive up, pointing out stuff. And again, we're assuming in the truck it's just the father and the two brothers. That's the kind of characters. It's just three of them in the truck as at this point in time, because neither the mother or the father have remarried, though they later do in the book, and there's more brothers and siblings that get added into the general picture. But there's photos in here, some good historical photos of, if you don't have the book, there's stuff like this, although it's going to be reversed for you, like kind of black and white, old-timey. That was a really quick showing. But if you rewatch it, you can pause it on there. And again, I don't think there's anything like crazy like clues or anything in the photos. I don't think that's what they're there for. They're just kind of to add color to the story. There's a humorous story that starts out, right? This story starts out kind of humorous. The dad, kind of joking as they're driving up. The exchange with the gift shop lady, and then him vomiting, right? So, hey, 3D Bronze, what's going on, man? Yeah, by the way, my sound issue, I deleted all those files like you told me to, and it just it didn't help. So it's weird. I don't know. Yes, Davio, this is Justin Search we're talking about. Page 17, we're covering the story called Posey Land. The book has a nice flow to it. It starts out talking about his mother and father, and then it talks about his mother's side of the family, and then his father's side of the family. And so now we're kind of flowing through Justin's genealogy, if that's the word, Justin's where he comes from, right? So for someone who says, hey, the way to understand the treasure is to understand me, he's laying things out in a very logical approach. Yeah, his search came to a pretty pretty exciting end. I'll say, if anyone's watching and doesn't know or watch it later, 3D Bronze also runs treasure hunts, and he had one in Vegas that was pretty cool. And I think there's YouTube videos up about it. All right, so the funny story here is it's on page 19, and it talks about Justin when he's a kid going into his gift shop and smelling candles. And some of them are, talks about fresh pine and winter frost. And then the smell is so strong he vomits. And so he vomits all over the gift shop and all these candles. And it's a humorous moment. And I mean, I can kind of relate. I think I'm sensitive to pine, a pine smell, and I'm kind of allergic to some candles. So it kind of makes sense to me that, okay, yeah, a kid in a gift shop, some of those gift shops are overwhelming with smells. They can be sensitive. Maybe he had a really big lunch before, and then so a really strong smell can can trigger that. I mean, I don't think that's a made up story. I kind of believe something like that could happen. Only thing, if you're looking into each word in each paragraph, looking for like key words, I mean, you might look at how he talks about making your mark is kind of he talks about on page 19. He talks about fresh pine and winter frost are in quotes, so kind of they're showing you what the smell is. But I don't know how good his memory would be if he could accurately recall like the smell of the candle or the name of the candle from when he was, say how old he was, 89. So this happened in 1989. So I don't know how old he was then, but yeah. So I don't know if that's significant. I kind of put a little a mark next to it and wrote it down. Yeah, Davio, exactly. So if you're looking for word significance, and if you think that that's how you're gonna crack this poem is through like keywords like that, this would be a page you'd write down. It's one of the first instances I see in the book of making your mark, right? And then you have some descriptive words of like fresh pine and winter frost are kind of in quotes. So again, it could just be and mountain air is another one. So it could just be an example of him. This is a true event. He's just writing descriptive language. He's recalling a smell. I mean, I'm sure there's a candle called fresh pine. But again, it's up to you to decide if that's going to be significant to you or not in your solve. Anyways, moving on, they go into a little bit of the genealogy, and Justin, when he's describing this, is very, he's very humble. It's not a humble brag by any means, talking about like, oh, my family was, important to this area, or like one of the founding families or something. He's kind of like tongue in cheek as he describes like, they talk about a Posey cottage at the Sacramento Mountains History Museum. And Justin's like, I always wondered if its presence, this is a direct quote, I always wondered if its presence at the museum was less an honor and more a case of someone not knowing what to do with it. Right? I mean, it's very, very humble, very tongue-in-cheek, very kind of like humorous descriptive of it. What's the purpose of this story? Well, the first one is, it goes into his family, which is he's trying to communicate to the reader where he comes from, his parents and their parents, even going back another generation. And then as the story moves on, because I've read the book, he kind of brings it up to current, right? Which it's a logical way to write a book if you want someone to get to know you, right? You'd start with your parents. And I mean, maybe some people go back another generation. He does. He goes back another generation to his grandfather. He mentions his great-grandfather a few times, but nothing really super significant. I mean, I don't. No offense to me right now. I think let's see, great grandfather Andrew Jack Posey. So Andrew Jack Posey is his great grandfather, and there's a couple fishing stories about there. Again, fishing plays a pretty big role we're seeing. Here's where I wanted to focus in on page 21. This is significant. Okay, I think. So I'm going to read a sentence here, page 21, halfway through. His voice, this is talking about his father, his voice would get bigger with each telling, as if the stories themselves were trying to fill something I couldn't quite see, a space that had been empty so long it had become part of him. All right, that's a pretty deep line for in my opinion, for a story about a kid vomiting in a gift shop and his dad cracking jokes about famous fish and naming fish of the lake and their political affiliations. That line it stood out to me. It's the first time. I mean, there's been some serious topics addressed early on, right? Divorce is a serious topic. It's addressed head on in the first chapter, but the stories are kind of light up until here. Now, I mean, you were kind of peeling back the page. And again, you just if you have the book, read it. If you don't, just listen to this sentence again. So they're at the lake, right? It's the dad, the two boys, and the dad's dad. So from Justin's point of view, it's his dad and his grandfather and his brother. They're all at the lake. They're fishing. Fishing is very important to Justin. It's an event that happens frequently in the book. So they're fishing. The dad's telling a story. The grandpa's kind of quiet, and he says, speaking of his father, his voice would get bigger with each telling, as if the stories themselves were trying to fill something I couldn't quite see, a space that had been empty so long it had become a part of him, right? So we're talking about, this is a little bit of a deep analysis here. Hey, good morning, Tyler. So the way I read that, right, Justin either, I don't know if he picked it up then as a kid or now in hindsight, that he recognizes there's a space in his father that had been empty for so long. It had become part of just who he was, and he's trying to compensate for that by telling wild stories, or bigger and bigger stories. Right? It's kind of a deep theme, and if that had been a one-off line, then okay, we might kind of just move on. But the next paragraph down, still on the same page, he kind of elaborates more on that, right? So this is once again the father telling a story. Old Jack Posey, so this is Justin's father talking about his grandfather. All right. Old Jack Posey once caught a rainbow trout so big, he'd begin, and we settled in for a tale that would have made Hemingway blush. Sometimes I'd catch him glancing toward my grandfather, who stood motionless at the water's edge, rod held perfectly still, his approval as elusive as the fish we sought. Dad's stories would grow larger then, as if they could somehow bridge that quiet distance. So that there, I think that's the crux. I think that's the hidden thing that Justin's talking about, right? Somehow, this is, and again, this is heavy stuff. Which, if you're trying to understand the man, he's going deep, right? He's not shying away from more not sensitive topics, but heavy topics, right? And we're talking about like father's approval. You could kind of segue that into like what it means to be a man, manhood, fatherhood, parenthood. And so this is, from the way I read it, is that Justin, either then or now, has picked up that there was something in his dad that was empty, and the stories are kind of compensating for that. And here we get a scene of that where he catches his dad looking at his dad's dad. So, sorry, I'm trying to use the right words here. Justin catches his father looking over toward his grandfather, right? Looking for approval. And the grandfather's approval is as elusive as the fish we sought. And then the dad's stories would kind of grow larger then, right? And again, I mean, I've read enough, and I think I understand enough about human interactions and the way parents' actions affect their children. Had deep conversations before. I'm really blessed that I come from a great, solid, loving family, and that express their love. They were able to express their love. But recently talking with some friends that they didn't come from that same kind of family environment where they knew logically they knew their parents loved them, but they never heard that from them. And then as they got older, they realized because their grandparents never said that. So that's kind of like I don't know if family trauma is the right word or if it's too serious, but that's kind of something they're trying to break. And they're their parents now, so they're trying to break that cycle. So again, I may be overanalyzing this, but people can chime in when they get the book or when they get to this part. Again, we're on page 21 of the story called Posey Land. But I think it's something that, and it does carry over in the next couple stories, without spoiling it, because I'm going to do a video on them. But there is a story where he has to go get the mail from his grandfather, the same grandfather, his father's father. And there's a little bit of back and forth as a challenge. He faces some rattlesnakes, and it's a whole big deal. But at the very end, he notes that, again, I'm trying my best not to skip ahead and to tell you what that story is about. He gets a set of rattlesnake rattlers from his grandfather, and there's kind of like an unspoken, "I'm proud of you, good job," but it's unspoken. The grandfather never says it. And Justin, I guess he has the EQ, emotional intelligence, IQ, EQ, emotional. What's the EQ? Emotional intelligence, EI, whatever. He has enough understanding of that the grandfather is just not capable of saying, "Hey, good job, grandson," or "I love you, grandson," or "I'm proud of you." But by him giving him these rattlesnake rattlers, it's a symbolic. I mean, it really happened, according to the story, and I believe it. But anyways, so why we spent so long talking about that is because I think it's something to mark down if we're talking about, people that had a big impact, or certain chapters that had a major direction toward what's important to Justin as to where to look, and when we're applying this poem. Because, right, people have already chimed in that the poem can apply to a lot of different places. Almost all of the states in the Rockies, almost all the, many of the western states, you can find a lot of these things. Silent waters, you can find holes, you can find poles, you can find ancient gates, you can find brides, threes, granite, you can find a lot of that, right? So we're trying to figure out from what Justin said, and now we're going to lead into the interview because we're coming to the end of the chapter. But yeah, so the end of the chapter talks about the dad caught this fish. It's a memorable evening. This ensuing battle between man and fish, real time became the stuff of legend. That's a direct quote. And the last line is, and somehow in the late this direct quote, and somehow in the late afternoon light, I understood that every story he'd ever told was really about the same thing. Impossible things could happen if only someone was watching. So again, I don't know how that would apply to a treasure hunt. I mean, you don't necessarily want someone watching when you're when you're digging up the treasure. But now that we're getting into, I'm going to talk about the interview now, and his allusion to there being a checkpoint and all the discussion on Discord about, is there a trail cam somewhere or whatnot. I mean, it seems like kind of a little bit of a stretch to me that this last sentence, impossible things could happen if only someone was watching, is like an allusion to when you get close to the gold or when you approach the actual treasure, there will be someone watching. So that's like your impossible thing, finding this treasure and someone is watching, and that's kind of like a hint. I don't know. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I wanted to just point it out there. All right, so that's the end of that chapter. The next chapter is, again, pretty exciting. I'm doing my best to avoid running into it. I'll save that for tomorrow, the postal pilgrimage. And there are some pretty good illustrations. Now that we've learned from the illustrator, if you haven't followed her on Instagram or looked at her Instagram, she did a post 2 or 3 days ago talking about her process a little bit. And so this is a pretty good one. Describes the scene. This is going to be backwards for you, but it's, the father, I think that's Justin, his brother, big fish, and that's the grandfather kind of over to the side. But you kind of get the impression just from that photo, right? I mean, from the illustration, that the grandfather is not he's not in there with them. He's kind of a little bit off to the side, kind of quiet and stoic. And the way he's kind of described is kind of that way. So now I want to do a little bit of a recap of all the places that have been mentioned so far. And then we'll get into the interview. I keep saying we're going to get into the interview, but after this. So early on, we've got Tucson. We've got Saguaro National Park East, which, again, I pointed out that first time we're mentioning East. Why would he say Saguaro National Park East? Maybe because that was the actual name of it. Now it's called, and he says in the book, Saguaro National Monument. Rocky Mountains and arenas. His mother, he pictures her barrel riding the Rocky Mountain arenas. Southern New Mexico, American Southwest, Tucson, American Rockies, Dillon, Montana. Tucson, Snake River, Dillon, Montana. Beaverhead, Deer Lodge, Bannock, Coolidge, both in Montana. Crystal Park, Blacktail, Deer Creek, Alamo Gordo, Texas Canyon, Dragoon, San Simon, Lordsburg, Deming, Cloudcroft, Sacramento Mountains, Mayhill, Texas, Bonita Lake. These are, what I did with these is just kind of made a general heat map. And again, this is not something I'm doing for to lead me to a solve. I can't see myself picking a state this soon. It's just, there's too much information. I want to digest it a lot more. The poem is too vague to me to begin with. So I'm still trying to put everything together and kind of see where things are, right? So if you put all the locations in a heat map, and I left out, he does mention Nova Scotia once, but I left it out because it's outside the map, and it would throw off my heat map. So I left it out. I put it in, and the picture was weird. So if you put in all the locations mentioned so far, and I'm up to page 20 something or other, and you kind of get, it's very, very American Southwest focused with a thin line, kind of following the Snake River up to Montana, and then you get another heat map up there, right? Nothing it's very, very small heat map, right? And again, this is just to get a focus, to get my mind thinking of what the book is about. And then I'll have to decide, everyone will have to decide eventually, if you believe that he's describing places that the treasure is, or he's describing his childhood, and you apply that to the poem, and you get a place that is outside, right? I mean, you'd have to rationalize it in your mind that, okay, Justin told us so much about himself. He told us so much about his parents and their grandparents, and they all lived over here, but he never mentioned Idaho once, and the treasure's in Idaho. And how does that rationalize? Or pick another state, Nevada, because eventually, spoiler alert, he does move to Washington, right? And so we do get the heat map will change. He goes over to Washington. So again, you just have to kind of sit down to yourself, knowing what we know about how the documentary portrayed the Fen hunt. So picture, which again, maybe Justin's already has this in his mind of a documentary for when his hunt ends, right? Maybe he, got some Netflix guys' business cards and he's thinking about it. So when all is said and done, fast 3, 4, 5, 10 years, however long, I hope not that long, but when it comes time to lay out the solution, it's like, all right, Justin, you talk so much about Arizona, New Mexico, Tucson, Montana, then okay, now the treasure was actually found in Oregon or in Idaho, and like how do we get there from there, right? So we're very very early. I'm still in like the fact finding mode. I'm not in the put together solve together mode at all. It's just something to think about. Okay, now the good stuff. Shout out to Calazar and K-Pro. Really, really great getting that live interview. Shout out to Justin for again, like not shying away from stuff. And from what I saw, K-Pro really pretty much went down the channel of they put a channel in their Discord of like questions you want to ask Justin, and they basically just went down that whole hey, what's up, Jackie? They went down that whole thing. There was a few they skipped for obvious reasons, but a few. So I went down, watched the interview twice, and made a couple notes. So one of the first ones was consecutive order, right? They ask if the poem's in consecutive order. He answers with like a resounding yes. That's huge, right? Because earlier I toyed around with the idea that maybe the poem's out of order and part of the puzzle is to figure out the order. Well, he shut that down right away. It's like, no, it's in order, which is really good because we know where to start, and in theory we know where to end, right? Which is huge and massively helpful. So that's a big star next to there. Anyone working on a solve should definitely have that highlighted and remember that the poem is like a consecutive order. The next big note I put down is the solution will be an exact spot. Again, a resounding yes, resounding, awesome. And so I wrote a couple notes next to this. This is purely my humble opinion. The way, as a newbie, right, if I think of treasure hunts that give an exact spot, most of the time, there's a few ways I'm thinking about. I'm thinking of Mike's favorite, GPS coordinates, right? Because you get exact spot from coordinates. I'm thinking of coordinates. I'm thinking of exact markers using either roads or highways, because rivers and highways don't change that much. I don't like using other geographical features like trees. Not a big fan of that. A lot of I won't get into that, but yeah, just not a big fan of using like trees. Certain rocks, maybe. I know rocks erode over time, but if we're looking at like a 5 to 10 year timeline on the conservative side, I mean, a rock might be fair game. Big ingredient rocks. John Adams, 4-letter John. Trust the 4-letter Johns. Ingredient rocks. I'm not sure what you mean about that. But again, so I'm thinking of if he leads you to a location, exact location, right? How can that happen? Well, a big one is grid coordinates. Another one is azimuths or like directional degrees off of a spot. So again, you get to a town center, you get to a crossroads of rivers, or you get to crossroads of highways or roads. And big effing rocks. Got you, John. All right, now we're you lost me with ingredients, but I got you now. Yeah. So, okay. So making a list here: roads, highways, rivers, big F rocks, coordinates, degrees. I think all of those would be kind of fair game for a way to get an exact location. And so I think that's kind of like not to say that he couldn't do it creatively, but as you're working through a solve or you're looking through the puzzle, kind of lean toward one of those or try to go through it. I mean, the way I'm going to try to do it is I'm going to try to look, okay, like spend a couple hours. Today we're looking for coordinates and see if that happens. And then next day, okay, erase my mind. Today we're looking for like rivers. Today we're looking for roads. Today we're looking for town names. Yeah, Montana's a pretty popular one. So moving on to the next one. Again, so we got consecutive order, we got exact spot, We got how far from the car. Amazing that he answered this because like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and when I had no idea who Justin was, well, maybe that's not fair. Maybe like 2 months ago, people were like describing him to me like he's a super fit guy. He goes biking all the time. He like runs marathons. He hikes the woods for hours at a time. And people were like, man, he's gonna shove this thing way far in the woods, like super super deep, right? He throws at the 9,000 miles, and everyone's like, oh man, I don't even know if this is gonna be something I can do. But then he comes out and like shuts all that down by answering, it's going to be less than a mile. And the way I agree with a lot of people who analyze that question, the way he kind of like answered it, I think it's significantly less than a mile. And what do I mean by significantly? 3/4 of a mile. I mean, I'm definitely going to draw a mile circle on my search spots and definitely search in there. I might even go above it just for why not. But I do think that I wouldn't be surprised if it's found, half a mile from like a parking lot or something like that. So really great that he answered that. I think that opens, that goes into the accessibility of the hunt, right? He really does want everyone to be a part of it. I mean, a lot of people, me myself included, might have trouble with like a 10-mile trek into like the wilderness. But a mile, I think most of us could bang out a mile, especially if it was less than a mile, right? So huge that he answered that. And that ties into the exact location spot, right? Because if you're using rivers, roads, rocks, coordinates to get a spot, and then you have to go like several miles in, that throws it off. That brings in the grid search because the further you go from a spot, if you're off by a couple centimeters or degrees or whatever, you could miss it by a mile. But if it's close to a road, close to a trailhead, close to a parking lot, close to an exact spot, like less than a mile from it, then that does narrow things down a lot, right? One other thing that if you're looking for an exact spot, in addition to coordinates, rivers, roads, big F rocks, call it the John, you're also looking for a distance, in my opinion, because you'll navigate to a spot, and then it'll say, go X amount of distance. So that's another thing I'm going to be looking for is, how can we get a distance from this? Whether it's, let me flip to the poem. And there's not too many numbers in here, right? So we might have to get creative. So whether it's, 3 and 20, how we're going to get a distance out of that, 20 paces, 3 feet, 3 paces, 3 meters, 3 yards. 20, if we're supposed to use, as some people say, using the clues from Netflix, that's the distance. I don't think that's the case. I don't think an important thing as distance would be left out of the poem. But, I've seen some stuff with the safe, 310 feet, 4,000 whatever feet. So, but we might have to get a little bit creative with distance. So looking for beyond the reach of time's swift race. So time is mentioned a lot. But if we recall from the story, about his dad asking him to clock and find out his speed, and he talks a little bit about, the math involved in that and mile markers and judging the time between them, we could get a distance from that. I mean, theoretically, mathematically possible, right? So if somehow you're led to 2 mile markers, or you're led to locations that are near 2 mile markers, and then you judge the distance between them, that could be a significant distance that you have to apply somewhere else, right? I don't think that that's crazy out of the way, especially because he kind of gives you the pattern in an early chapter. Is it only the poem that is to be used to find the location? All right, so this is still up for debate, right? So he says you can find it using the poem, right? The poem's all you need. If you haven't watched the interview on Calazar's YouTube channel, Samantha, I highly suggest it. It was really good. Justin gives a lot of good information. And even though the video is like 45 minutes to an hour, Justin's only on there for like 30 minutes. So, it's doable. If you watch it in double speed or time and a half speed, it's quick watch. Is it only the poem that is to be used to find location? So I'm using everything at my disposal, everything that I can. But again, he does say that you can find it just using the poem. And again, so if we go off of that theory that using the distance between 2 known spots or 2 spots on the poem is the distance that we apply to find the treasure from the last known spot, you can get that from the poem, but you can also get it from the book. It kind of it tells the example of it. I haven't. Okay. Yeah. So I think you should be okay. I do think you need the book because we're getting to this next. So there are questions asked about watching the series versus a book, and Justin kind of says you watch the Netflix series to tell you like where to go in the book. I don't think I wrote down his exact words from that. Hope I didn't butcher it too much, but that's kind of what I got from that. That I made the note, watch the series to find out what's important in the book, and then apply that to the poem. Okay, moving on. So we've got consecutive order. We've got exact spot for location. How far from the car? Less than a mile. Next thing Samantha's bringing up. Do I need to watch which is more important, the series or the book? And the way you kind of answered it, I wrote down that you're watching the series to pick up on hints and clues. And he does say he doesn't separate between hint and clue. He says to him it's the same thing. Yosemite National Park, love that place, feels like home. I've only driven like through there once. I've never really, it's not on my, I haven't got a chance to really explore it. I do want to though. I've always thought redwood trees are like the coolest thing possible. So when I was in California, I went to Muir Woods. I went to the redwoods up in like Northern California, but not really in Yosemite. Yeah, the safe numbers could correlate to book pages too. So the next thing on the list is the chest. What's the treasure hidden in? Easily, extremely recognizable, right? And he says that, and it's kind of like, I don't know, he's kind of smiling when he says it. To me, in my head, I don't know why, but I think of Tucker. And so I don't know why, in my head, I have this thing that like there's like a bronze cast of Tucker, not like life size, right? Because that'd be super heavy, but and I don't think it's hollow. Like I don't think it's Tucker filled, like a Tucker chest that you like cookie jar, like you open his head and there's gold inside. And it just in my head, I'm picturing maybe this size, I don't know, size Tucker bronze cast sitting in like a bush or next to a bush or a thicket or something, and then it's under that, right? That would that would keep it safe pretty much from the elements, I think. So anyways, that's what I'm working on. But he says it's easily recognizable. All right, next thing I wrote down is there clue verification? Like if you're working the poem, is there something that you can find that'll tell you you're on the right path? Oh, Jackie, cast your pole, flagpole, cast shadow. Yeah, it's pretty good. Some people are asking about sundials too. Sundials and flagpoles. Flagpoles are normally, most ranger stations are like national park offices have a flagpole in the front, I'm pretty sure. Schools have flagpoles. Post offices have flagpoles. Government buildings have flagpoles. A lot of places for flagpoles, and some private individuals have flagpoles. Ranches have flagpoles. The area in Dallas that my aunt lives in, there's like a lot of massive ranches out there, and almost all of them have like a big state of Texas flagpole. Okay, is there a checkpoint? So I'm not going to go too conspiracy theory or too wild into the weeds for this one, but it's good to know that there is a checkpoint, and it seems the way I was listening to it, it's a checkpoint for both the searcher and the hider. I think that's the kind of impression I was getting, that it'll let him know someone's closing in, and it'll let you know that you're close. And again, how that could apply, I don't know. Pen treasure, I believe, use a cipher. I wonder how accurate that is. Oh, Justin, yeah. So if you don't know, that's the next one. The next thing I wrote down is that. So they asked him. I think K-Pro did. Does your book have a lot of ciphers or are grand, complicated? I forget her exact wording, but he responded that there's one, right? The one that requires, and I'm trying to do his exact words. I don't think he used the word cipher. I think he used like technical knowledge. But I like that, right? I like that. Hey, there's one in there, and it doesn't seem like you need to solve it to find the gold. You can solve it without it. As a matter of fact, yeah, okay. Well, I won't go too much into that. Okay, yeah. So back to the checkpoint. I mean, how could that work? I've done some exploring for some East Coast for the other hunt, JCBs, the Treasure Inside, and some of the trails I've been on. It's not a camera. It's what's it called? A reader, a meter. It's like waist high. It's at the trailhead, and a couple of the trails had a sign that it was there, and a couple of them didn't. But it's like it'll be like in a box on the back of like, so at the trailhead there'll be two like wooden poles, kind of showing you where the trail starts, and then the back of one, it's a little box and it's got a little hole, and it has like a infrared or some kind of meter out or laser out that when you walk by, it triggers like a count. And the one that had a sign, this was in Delaware. The one that had a sign, yeah, like a motion sensor. The one that had said it was so they could monitor trail. They could monitor trail activity, or I forget the exact words. I should have taken a picture. Monitor how many people are on the trail, and that was the reason why they had it there. So it could be something like that, you know, not exactly a camera, but just a tripwire motion sensor that when somebody walks past. Again, how would you, okay, but what about random hikers? What about wildlife? I don't know how to answer the wildlife question, but if this is really a far out there one-off trail that like hardly nobody uses, I mean, that might make it worth it that, hey, okay, somebody is near here. I don't know. Or like the trail that Treasure's on is like in a very, very secluded spot with only one road to get in. And yeah, again, he was very careful about how to say it. And so there's like a car reader or motion sensor at the beginning of the trail, so he knows when someone drives through. Right, you could get over. Again, I'm getting a little out in the weeds here, but you could bypass the wildlife aspect by having. And I don't know how expensive this would be, but you know how like traffic lights, they have the thing buried under the road that lets you know when something is over like a certain weight. So like a lot of times it won't trigger for a bicycle, but for like a heavy vehicle, it'll trigger. Like if there was something like that at the trail base buried. But I don't know. I'm getting far out there. Probably not. Anyways, so moving on, the last thing I wrote down was constellations and stars. And the problem with air tags is that they can be picked up, like if you're near it. And a lot of other trackers give off a passive signal. And so if you design something that picks up on passive signals, although you'd have to get close. I mean, I guess you're right. I mean, if it's really, really far out there and nobody would ever go there, then it's okay to have something that emits a passive signal because nothing's going to ever pick it up. And you'd have to basically grid search. Anyways, stars. Talk about stars here, last words. So when asked about if Justin has any favorite constellations, which I love that they did this because he kind of like gave a smile and he's like, I'm not going to answer that. So I don't know. Is that a definite confirmer that, hey, stars and constellations are going to apply into this somehow? I think so. I'm working off it. That yeah, say for the word Ursa in the poem, are you looking to constellations? Yeah, Fenny Bones. Yeah, so I just talked about it. Yeah. And I'm looking for both, right? I like Bear East as like directional term, right? It's kind of tongue in cheek, like everyone's going to be looking for bears and for constellations, but really it means you turn east when you hit this point. Both, right? It could be both. I'm looking down both roads, but definitely looking at constellations because of how Justin responded to that answer. I highly recommend you go back and rewatch Calazar's video. I should have wrote a timestamp for what part it was. It was toward the end of his time on there. But give them a thumbs up, like their channel for getting him on, and then take a look at how he answers that constellation question. Okay, coming to the end here. Went a little bit long, but that's fine. Big news is I've got an interview with Justin. So going to try to make that happen later today. However, I'm not going to do it live. I'm still a rookie. I'm not as sure as myself and in my technical skills that I want to do a live and have something go off. So it's going to be pre-recorded. And I also think that, at least in my rationing going into this, was I get nervous on live. And so I'm like, okay, if I'm a treasure hunter and I have all these people looking for what I hid, I might be a little bit nervous on a live show, but I'll be more relaxed on something pre-recorded that I have a little bit more control over. And so last night, he didn't look nervous at all. Like, the dude's got ice in his veins. Like, he was answering everything. Like, so I may have underestimated him. But regardless, we're going to do that. It's going to be, it'll be me and him. It'll be, we'll record it. And then I'm going to pass it back to him if he likes the final approval. And then I'm going to post it up. So it'll probably be tomorrow or the next day, depending on how long the approval process takes. It's gonna. I'm a quick editor, and it's not gonna be like a lot of flair and jazz and fluffy stuff to it. It's just gonna be both of us talking. But I did rewatch several times the interview because I don't want to ask the same questions, right? That doesn't do the community any good if everyone who interviews Justin asks the same questions. So I'm going to try to avoid all the questions that were asked. And I've got some new ones. There's a few on there that maybe just me personally want some clarification on. But yeah, so look forward to that. That should be coming up tomorrow or the next day. So that'll be pretty cool. But thanks, guys, for watching. If you haven't, most of you guys have subscribed already, but if you haven't, make sure to give this channel a like, a subscribe, and if you want to know exactly when my latest video comes out or when I do a live, hit the notification bell so you get a notification when I go live, because I'm not always structured as to when they happen. All right, guys. Let's see, anything I missed? Thank you, Samantha. Appreciate it. Yeah, Justin. Hey, Justin, but there is some good East Coast hunts, smaller ones. And the books are a lot cheaper, and the buy-in's cheaper, and some of them are even free. So my last interview with with Jeff and Paul, they've got a nice Mid-Atlantic hunt. It's going on right now. It's for I think up to like $3,000. It's in like I think the Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland area, and their website is free. You can look at a shrinking circle, and which is really cool. And it's a short time period, so it's guaranteed to be found in like a couple weeks. So Justin, that's something to look out for. Thank you, Clinton. Proud of you. Good. Just don't edit out the hints, and he'll give us the clues. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he said that hints and clues are the same thing, as far as he said. But yeah, I'm not going to edit anything out. I'll put it all out there. I'd only cut something if he said it was a slip up or he didn't want it out there. What was the name of that one again? Oh, it was Veil. And the website is findveil.com. www.findveil.com. But if you search Veil Treasure Hunt, it'll pop up. Not too many people are in it, so that's a good, if you're in the DMV area, you know, Maryland, DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania, like you got a pretty good shot at finding $3,000. And is there a website to find some close to Ohio? Oh, I don't know, Justin. I'm not, I don't know. The best bet would be if you're in the Calazar's Discord or in Mysterious Writings Discord, just ask. There's a couple of them have like treasure hunts near you or treasure hunts going on. Just ask in there for one in Ohio. All right, guys. Thanks, ADK. Appreciate it, man. All right. Take care, guys. See you later. Bye.